In the Lab, a Texans podcast that takes a different look at things. Drew Dougherty and John Harris have their lab coats and goggles on, and the Bunsen burners burning. Here's Drew.
Hey friends, this is In the Lab, and I'm Drew Dougherty, not in the stadium, but with a stadium backdrop behind me with my good pal, John Harris. John, what's going on, my man?
What's going on? That does look kind of nice behind you. I thought about doing a virtual background too, but I'm on my phone, so Lord only knows what's on my phone to put as my virtual background. So I'll just leave it where it is.
I bet you can make some things happen, but you and I are going to talk on the television show Texans 360 a little bit later on this week. But the fans are getting a little bit of us today, or a lot of us today, a lot more of us today, and we're talking about Johnson and Johnson, the backfield. You and I have hit on it from time to time over the last few months after the Texans acquired David Johnson. No Carlos Hyde. He just signed with the Seahawks. So it's going to be David Johnson, Duke Johnson, and we think there's a possibility Karan Higdon might make his way into a rotation, get some carries next year. But I have a few questions for you about the Johnson and Johnson backfield. First one is, how many times and how often do you think per game we're going to see them in the backfield or on the field at the same time? I get that question so often, and it's a great question on Dear Drew.
Yeah.
And I say I think it's going to go up from what you've seen here in the past as far as having two running backs on the field at the same time. What's your idea? Where you think we're headed this way?
Well, I think there's a decent chance. Now, some of it might be, and a lot of it might be game plan related, just based on defenses they're seeing, matchups that they want to dictate. They may see something against a particular team where they're going to want to use that combination a little bit more than maybe even we think. But here's the thing, when really to run that kind of two-back set, whether you're running 20 personnel or 21 personnel, and you're using that set, we're using both of them, where you're not using Gilly with one of them, you're using Duke and David. The difference in that versus what the Texans have had before when they've been able to try that is the fact that both of them really are such good pass receivers. So you can put both in the backfield, you can motion one out, and you really don't lose a whole heck of a lot in the receiving game. So you can have three wide receivers on the field. Let me do a five. Yeah, you can have three receivers on the field with those two backs, and you can motion a back out, have 2x2 set, and you still have a running component back there. And so you can kind of see what the defense wants to do when you put one guy in motion or you shift, and you can see how they want to play it. And if they want to take too much out of the box, then you can run the football with both of them. If they want to keep guys in the box because they're still fearful of your run, well, then you can find your best one-on-one matchup and throw it to them. It becomes a numbers game, really. And that's what you do when you have two running backs like that, is you kind of dictate the numbers the way you want. And it's kind of, I don't want to say easy. Nothing is really easy, but it really does become about counting, because you can look at it and say, okay, well, when we motion David out as a receiver, they kept 6 in the box, or they keep 7 in the box, or they keep 7 within the box, or they went with a linebacker with him. They took a linebacker out of the box. Now you can dictate to, all right, well, we'll just run Duke on inside zone, or some stuff we want to run with some power inside with Duke, just as much as you can run with David, and vice versa. So there's such good pass receivers. When you did that last year with Carlos and with Duke, the roles were pretty much locked in. Carlos was the runner, Duke was the receiver. And so the only thing really is, if you ran Carlos in motion or shifted him out of the backfield, you weren't going to get probably the same level of respect you'll get when you motion David Johnson out of the backfield. And so when Carlos would go out of the backfield, you could send a safety with him because you wanted to stay solid against, a running box. If Duke was in the backfield with Carlos, Duke was going to go in motion. Well, you just treated him like a receiver.
Yeah.
And you still kept the box pretty much as is to play against Carlos Hyde, know that Carlos is going to run the ball. Well, if you got Duke and David back there, it's really kind of You can juggle a few different things. You don't have to have just one guy do the same thing every time. You can mix it up and say, okay, we're going to do this with David. We're going to do this with Duke. And then you can mix things up. And I think that opens up pretty much everything. To be honest, Drew, I think it opens up a lot for players not named Duke Johnson and David Johnson, because you have to spend so much time focused on, well, how are we going to play these two guys? How are we going to play this formation?
And
and so I like that combination.
And that what you just said, that leads me into my second question, which is, how much do you think this combo affects the target distribution? Because over the last decade, justifiably so, DeAndre Hopkins has gotten the lion's share of the targets from the Texans quarterbacks because he's one of the best receivers in the game. How much do you think that changes? Because I doubt we see Will Fuller or Brandon Cooks get that same amount of just force feeding, for lack of a better term. And it was okay to force feed DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. But how much do you think the distribution rate target-wise changes now because of what we have in the backfield for the Texans?
Well, what I find interesting about it, Drew, is let's say that DeAndre was targeted 10 times a game. It's 160 over the year. Split up 160 targets, and you go, whoa, that's a lot of targets that you got to spread out. But if you think about it like this, it's 160 targets. We get 10 per game. All right, well, you're probably going to throw to Will Fuller 2-3 extra times. You're going to throw, obviously, to Brandon Cooks. He's going to now pick up a decent amount over what that particular position would be. Your tight ends are probably going to get another couple there. We just talked about the two running backs. They're probably going to get another couple. And before you look up, you're like, man, that's about 12, 13 targets of the 10 that were going to DeAndre. There's 12 or 13, so that's 2 or 3 on top of that you're probably going to have. So I think you're going to be able to spread out those targets. And to me, what ends up happening is, you know this better than anybody. Mike Leach at Texas Tech, Washington State, now Mississippi State. You asked Mike about throwing the ball to this guy, they're in this coverage, this, and Mike Leach will just say, oh, you just throw it to the open guy. Well, that's kind of the situation. And I saw this tweet on it was probably about 2-3 weeks ago. And it had to do with Deshaun not having DeAndre on. It was one of these, fantasy guys. And it was like, well, what does he do on third down? And I wanted to reply back. I didn't want, but I still want to be snarky. I was like, he's going to throw it to the open guy. Yeah. That's what he's going to do. He's going to throw it to the open guy. And what happens when you put Duke and David in the backfield together is you now increase the complexity for the defense as to who the open guy might end up being and how you're going to play that guy. And I think the myriad talents of those running backs, just being able to be such good receivers in the slot, out wide, and being able to run zone game, gap scheme, all the things that they want to run in the run game, it puts a defense kind of back on their heels a little bit. You don't give them tendencies. When you had Duke and Carlos back there were tendencies there. But when you have those two back there, you don't. And that, I think, just opens up possibilities for so many different skill players, perimeter players, to be able to capitalize on that and take advantage of what a defense doesn't know it wants to do. Like, okay, we're going to go into this game. We're going to take away Fuller. Okay, we'll take away Fuller. We've got these other options to go to. Okay, well, now we're going to focus on those backs. Okay, well, you focus on those backs, and we'll run shifts and motions on you, and you're going to get screwed up in coverage, and we're going to steal 7 points from you because you blow coverage like the Chiefs did in that playoff game on, third and 1, fourth and 1 to Kenny Stills, because you're going to screw up in coverage because you're so locked in on trying to stop those two running backs, and they're moving and doing all kinds of stuff, and you're like, we screwed that up. Yeah. So I do think that the target distribution can actually go up and be spread out even further with what they have, in large part because of what complexities those two running backs provide for defenses.
Now, my third question about all of this is it's a two-pronged question. How does this backfield look with pass protection? Like how do they perform in pass protection? And what does this backfield mean for the number of times we'll see Cullen Gillespie on the field? You just mentioned him a moment ago. But last year, the few times that Gillespie was in on offense, nice things happened on offense. Yeah. Not necessarily Gillespie getting the ball and getting a big game, but other plays happened that were pretty positive yardage plays for the Texans in 2019.
Yeah, with Gilly, I think the nice thing about it is the fact that because you do have these two backs, and you don't first of all, you don't have a Christian McCaffrey situation, and you don't want a Christian McCaffrey situation. What I mean by that is, it's funny. I was just talking to Mark yesterday on All Access, and we were talking about Christian McCaffrey. In that game against us, he had, I think, almost 40 touches. Well, that's just not reasonable. I mean, the amount of time that it would take for somebody to recover from that week in and week out, you can't. And considering the fact that David's had some injuries, that you don't want him to be out there for 25 carries a game. Now, you'd like to think that if you needed him to get it, he could. Duke could give you 25 carries if possible. But you don't want either one of them to do that. So you want to keep both of them fresh. So if you want to keep a two-back set and keep them fresh, well, you have the option of using Gilly. And I go back to that Buffalo playoff game. Gilly is lined up, on the opposite side. He comes across, gets not only one block, but he gets two blocks as he goes to lead Deshaun Watson at the end zone on that first rushing touchdown. So there's some really good things that Gilly can do. The thing about it is, what you worry about, I think, for some teams is, okay, we're going to carry a fullback. What you worry about is, he's our fullback. He's pretty valuable, but he doesn't play special teams. He doesn't give us value anywhere else.
Well, he does.
Yeah. Right. And that's where you don't feel horrible in some sense about carrying a guy like Gilly and carrying a fullback, because he can be so valuable on special teams. So if you have a particular package that you want to use with Gilly, a 3 or 4 play package that comes up at the right time, then you can use him for, 7 to 10 plays a game if needed at that quote unquote fullback position with one of those two running backs alongside. You can do that. But if there are games where it's just not going to happen, the way the defense is schemed up, what they're looking at just isn't going to happen, then Gilly plays special teams the whole game, and you still get value out of having him on a 46-man roster on Sunday. So I think it's really an advantage with how good he is on special teams with the position that he actually plays, which I don't even want to use the word fullback, because he can do a little bit more than your average fullback, but because he's fast, he gets to some blocks that some bigger, bulkier fullbacks wouldn't. So you can do some different things with him. And I think as they utilize him maybe a little bit more than they did at the beginning of last year, maybe they kind of open up a few more things to be able to use him in the passing game. I mean, he's got 4.5 speed.
Well, so I was gonna say, you know this, Aggies know this. I don't know if the general Texans public knows this though. We saw him in training camp practices last year. He's got hands. He can catch the ball. I mean, he can actually do it. Now, I'm not saying you're gonna make a DeAndre Hopkins out of him, obviously, but if you find the right situation, he's gonna be able to do a little bit of damage.
Yeah, I think so too. And I thought that last year. I knew as a rookie it'd probably be tough, just learning everything. And obviously they're still, I don't say tinkering with the offense, but they're sort of tinkering with the offense, trying to find the right pieces and the right things. And so I think Gilly's probably positioned to do some different things in the passing game. But when you see a fullback go in the game, I mean, when you see Gilly go in the game and you're, just when we're watching the game, you see Gilly go in the game, you go, oh, okay, Gilly's in. Okay, that means probably going to run the ball. And defenses do the same thing. But if you get to a point where he goes in the game and you leak him out to the flat and you hit him and linebackers caught inside because he's expecting run, you pick up 15, 20 yards. He can turn that thing into a pretty big game because he turns the corner and gets upfield. He's got some juice.
Yeah.
One of the plays I broke down, Gilly's, after he was drafted, I'd gotten some film from our film guys. Played LSU his last year in 2018. He caught a pass on the flat, and Devin White, who ended up going number 5 in the draft, the Bucs ran 4.4 at the combine. Gilly caught a pass and turned up the field and ran away from Devin White. And it took Devin a good 15, 17 yards before he was able to run Gilly out of bounds. So Gilly's got some juice that if they can find a way. Now, he's obviously not option A, B, or C. But if there are some things, if you want to wrinkle off of something that you do already with him in the run game, well, hey, here's a wrinkle that you can use because Gilly's got some pass-catching ability and some speed once he gets outside. So I think with the number of pieces puzzle pieces you can put together in different ways, there's always that counter off of it. And that's, as a coach, that's always what I wanted. I wanted to show you some things that I liked, but then always have a counter off of that, whether it was a pass, whether it was a different kind of run, whether it was showing you a formation one way and then run the other, whatever. I wanted to always have something that I could use. And with Gilly, I think you're able to do that. With Duke and David in the backfield together, I think there are multiple ways to do that. So I like what this running back group has.
Yeah. Make defenses think. Make them, because if they have to think a little bit more, they're going to hesitate a little bit more, and that's going to open things up. All right, let's, instead of opening things up, let's close things down. And how are you doing COVID-19 wise as far as working out? You've been running a bunch. Has it gone up? Has it gone down? Has it stayed the same? Because you were running a pretty good clip before this, but what's the deal?
Yeah, I've been staying pretty, I would say pretty good, pretty good clip. Miss one every, I think probably once a week there'll be one where it's just can't get out there, but it's starting to get a little steamier now. So I don't know if anybody can see this, but on my hands, you can kind of see like right here, there's kind of this line that kind of goes right here where I've got this nice deep dark tan here. I run with long sleeves. I don't like putting on sunscreen. And so I looked at my hands one day, I was washing them, doing the, COVID-19, making sure to wash my hands. I looked up, I was like, man, why are my hands like, and my cut off shirt, my long sleeve shirts go all the way to there. And so I've got this nice, not even a farmer's tan. I don't even know what you kind of tan you call that, but it's like my hand tan. And it's all due to just the fact that I run with long sleeves. So hopefully I can get a run sometime today and try and stay in some kind of shape.
Look out, George Costanza, man. You keep tanning
How about
his
you?
hands.
What have you been doing?
Well, I was late to this podcast by about a half hour just because I squeezed in a swim, got a mile in, and the pool has opened back up recently, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, which is nice. So, you wear your face mask when you're getting ready to get in, you take it off, and then you've got plenty of space before you see anybody.
Yeah.
And then you're in a big vat of chlorinated water, so that's going to kind of kill a bunch of stuff. So thankfully I've been able to swim. I swam 6 of 7 days last week.
Nice.
And, I got in yesterday to swim, and I got 2 laps in, and it thundered, so we all had to get out. But I ran home. I ran a mile and a half home, so I was.
Well, there you go. Yeah. There you go. That'll definitely get you in shape. The thunder that's coming behind you. So
I know I'm getting back. I got a little bit on the doughier side with the time off, but I'm coming back. I'm gonna get back to my fighting weight soon.
Oh, I've been eating like a champ, but I've been counteracting. If I would eat properly with the running, you probably wouldn't be able to see me. I'd be like this skinny, but no, I've been eating like a horse, or trying to, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's COVID-19 stress or what, but I've made up for that, the eating for sure.
It's all good. All right. Well, hey, you and I are going to do some TV later in the week. So all of you out watching now or listening now, please watch ABC 13, KTRK, 11 o'clock Saturday night. Set your DVRs if you're not going to be able to make it, if you're going to be asleep or partying hard or I don't know. Just please watch us and have a good time. John, always good to talk with you, my friend.
All right, brother. See you, man.
See ya. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to know when we post new content.